we never went without the most important things, but we certainly didn't have a budget for extras. So now we're able to go out to eat. I'm able to buy, a backdrop. I'm able to invest a little bit in my blog if I need to, or I feel the need to. It's wonderful. And I'm so grateful for it. I could pinch myself. It's like a dream come true. And I also feel more inspired. I mean, the more growth and results that you see, the more inspired you feel to keep going. And I'm just grateful to be living a passion.
That was Kristen Wood, and this is episode number 197 of the Chopped Podcast. Hey there, how are you doing today? I am so glad you've joined me. I'm Marley McMillan with the blog Namely Marley, and I am your host of the Chop Podcast. I am passionate about all things food blogging and influencing, including ways we can all learn together about entrepreneurism, productivity, mindset, social media, and even some technical things like SEO. Today I'm talking with Kristen Wood. She's of the site Moon and Spoon and Yum, and we're talking about how to bootstrap your blog. So here's the thing. Way back in the day, it used to be that it was, food blogging. We were all just figuring things out on our own. There was really not a career path on it. Nobody was making money, at least if they were. It was not a lot. We were all doing that together. We were all just trying to figure things out on our own. But then suddenly food blogging and blogging in general probably became a viable career option, one that, you could actually make money at. And suddenly now we have consultants and courses and virtual assistants galore. And don't get me wrong, I think all of this is amazing. I'm so glad that food blogging has matured to this point that we can all attract this kind of, we're building this kind of industry behind it. It's awesome. I love it. But what's a person to do when they're starting a food blog and they don't have the budget for those kinds of fancy bells and whistles to really make their food blog hum? Can you do it? Is it even possible today? We've all know that food blogging is super competitive these days. So can you grow a food blog from scratch on your own? In the business world, this is called bootstrapping. The technical definition is getting yourself in or out of a situation using existing resources. And that's what Kristen did. She was a stay-at-home mom with a passion for food and photography, so she decided just to combine those into a food blog. And even though it started out as maybe more of a hobby, eventually she realized how successful some food blogs were being, and she decided to take her food blog along that path as well. Of course, she took several wrong turns along the way, and maybe they're not necessarily wrong turns, they were like learning turns. So she just kept on that path of learning and trying new things and discovering and immersing herself basically into the food blogging world. And soon she grew her blog into a thriving business, all on her own, all spending her own time, working hard. Now it's a thriving business and she can actually afford to invest more in her blog. And she talks about all that and more. If you're looking for a dose of inspiration to keep you going because you're feeling the struggle, you're feeling maybe you're tired from all these late nights working, is this going to matter? Is this going to make a difference? I think today's conversation is for you. It dishes out all the inspiration with some chocolate syrup on top. So let's get straight to it. Here's today's featured discussion with Kristen Wood. Hey everyone, I'm happy to have on the show today Kristen Wood. She's with the site Moon and Spoon and Yum. Hi Kristen, and welcome to the Chop Podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I'm so excited. We haven't met in person, but you sent me this email and I just feel so inspired by our discussion. I think it's going to be so helpful and really people are going to resonate with it so much.
I hope so. I'm excited about it.
So the thing I love to start with is let's talk about your blog. First of all, I love the name because I think so many people would have done Moon, Spoon, and Yum. And I think that "and" sounds kind of intentional. Did you do that on purpose?
Yes, I think I did. I wrote down, I just came up with my name by writing down a long list of names and just slowly going through it and crossing things out. And I just ended up with that one. And I just wanted something a little different. I just I just wanted to stand out a little bit and have something that also was kind of personal to me and could also be kind of kid friendly because I was a new mother. So it's just kind of several things wrapped into one with the name.
It has kind of a nursery rhyme feel to it. Is that what you were going for?
Yes. And also I've always been really affected by the moon and its cycles. Yeah. So there are just many different things that go into the moon. And then I wanted to rhyme to be kind of kid friendly. Yes. And then yum just to kind of, signify food.
Yeah, so tie in the food somewhere. Yeah. When my daughter, when I was pregnant with her, I did her room in The Cow Jumped Over the Moon, and it
Hmm.
was I went all in. I think I had the nesting syndrome took over, and I was all over about the moon. I
No, that's
love it.
great.
Yeah. And then, of course, she ended up, my daughter decided she wanted to be a NASA astronaut, and she went to space camp
Wow,
several years. Yeah. So maybe
that's
that had an
great.
influence on her. Yeah.
That's really
But she
neat.
didn't end up going that direction. But I think she still has an interest in it. And who knows, maybe someday.
Oh, that's neat. Yeah, my son's obsessed with space.
Oh, are you
Yeah.
really?
My son, my
Oh,
my
your
oldest
son.
son, my 5-year-old. Yeah,
Yes.
he's always talking about black holes.
Wow. Yeah,
So,
that's
yeah,
cool.
there's definitely a space theme in this family.
Ah, that's so cool. We have that too. My husband is, very much into that. We've watched the Neil deGrasse Tyson. Is it called Billions? I think.
Hmm. Hmm.
Has your son watched that? He would probably love that.
He has, and he finds little, educational videos on YouTube. What is a black hole? What is the solar system? He likes watching all that stuff,
Oh, yeah, there's
which I
so
love.
many cool. This is one thing I love about this age that we're in, and that is all of these individuals that are maybe bright in certain ways. Like we follow some YouTube channels that do science, or there's an astronomer in the backyard guy that
Hmm.
shows how he takes pictures of stars and things. Oh, it's really cool.
Hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, we could talk about that all day, but I think we're
Yeah,
here to talk about food, right?
yeah, I think so.
So tell me, what was it that caused you to start your food blog?
It was really just a way of combining passions because I've been interested in photography for years, but I mainly, spent a lot of time shooting nature photography, landscape photography, travel photography. And, I've always loved cooking and been inspired by ingredients and food. But when I became a new mom, I really knew that I still needed a creative outlet. And so it just occurred to me to one day, like, what would it be like if I start taking pictures of my food because I'm always cooking, and I'm always creating recipes. I love playing with stuff, in the kitchen. And it really just was a way of combining those passions, food and photography. I thought it was a perfect fit. And it really does seem to be a perfect fit for me. I really love it. It's something I still enjoy and have passion for. And I'm grateful for that.
Did you love food before? I mean, were you
Hmm.
interested in cooking before you started your blog?
Oh, definitely. Like I remember as a child, like when I would visit my grandparents, my granny, I would like read her Taste of Home magazines, and I would bring home recipe cards of hers, handwritten recipe cards. And yeah, I've always been a foodie.
Yes. Okay. So that was just definitely a natural progression for you
Hmm.
then.
Yes.
When you started your blog, did you think it would, have the possibility of being a business, or was it mostly hobby focused?
When I first started it, I think it was just more a creative outlet for me. But then I, quickly began to learn that, okay, people are doing this and they're taking it seriously and they're really making a living from it and it can become something. So then it really piqued my interest and I started learning all that I could. I made a lot of mistakes. I started out on Weebly and then I decided to move to Squarespace and only recently moved to WordPress. and I'm kind of kicking myself, but at the same time, I feel like things happen for a reason. I really believe
Yeah.
that. And I feel like I wouldn't have learned all that I learned if I, had started out on WordPress in the first place. So
It's what it was supposed to be. And I
yeah,
love that.
exactly.
And I really want to get into that more with you, but let's get into that in a minute. First, I want
Hmm.
to ask you about, the photography side of things. So you sound like you kind of came into this with some photography skills. Did you find food photography to be challenging at all?
Oh, yes, definitely. Because I'm used to just stumbling upon compositions in nature, like spotting them, in nature. Just,
Yeah.
like I like hiking and I just see something and I see a perfect composition. So I take its photo. I'm not used to styling and creating compositions myself for food.
Yeah.
So that's been a really steep learning curve for me. And it's like only recently did I start incorporating props and stuff and really thinking about it more, sincerely because I just didn't think that way. I used to just take head on shots of the food in the bowl, kind of macro shots. It still was okay because it was kind of focused on the food and that's what it's about. But recently I've started exploring more of, creating compositions, flat lays, incorporating more props, really thinking more about, putting a lot more effort and thought into it all.
It is challenging. I think styling to me is probably one of the hardest parts about food photography, if you ask me.
Hmm. Oh, definitely.
Do you do
Yes. And
natural?
lighting, natural
Yeah, I was
lighting.
going to ask you
Yes.
about lighting.
Yes. I've only done natural lighting and that's something that I've always looked at throughout life. I always notice the light changing. And so I'm always looking for that. But sometimes I don't have the option of shooting during ideal times because of kids and such. So I try to make the
Yes.
most of what I can do. But yeah, I love natural light.
I think you live in an area of the country, and I don't mean to downplay your relationship with the light at all. But here in the Midwest, things change a lot. But you're in Arizona, so do you feel like you have more light to work with?
Gosh, I don't know because I haven't really explored this journey anywhere else. you
Yes.
know, and we're in
Yes.
the mountains. We're at a high elevation, and
Oh,
it's a temperate climate. Um, but we recently moved, and that changes things too. Getting used to different directions and of light and windows and different setups, and I feel like
yes.
I'm relearning everything again because I had a favorite window at our old place. So, and there's always something to learn about light.
Yes, it's just you would think it would be so simple, but like just the time of the day that you're shooting may change, especially like you have little ones. It's just very
hmm
challenging. We eventually gave in and we have a light box now, but I do miss natural lighting is really nice.
hmm
I think it works really well with your style of photography too.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I'm interested in exploring artificial lighting eventually because I feel like I could be more productive because I like working at night. So
Ah,
we'll see
yes.
someday.
That is true. I can even shoot like right before we have dinner, right? And
hmm
it is nice just because you have a lot more flexibility that way.
hmm
Well, I've noticed that you have your own style of photography, and I'm always so inspired by people like that because I feel like it's so easy to kind of maybe craft our style after somebody else's, but you seem to have carved your own path, and I'm just curious if you could talk about that.
Well, it's something that both comes naturally for me and that also I struggle with because I've tried to, do the light and bright stuff, and I feel like it's not quite me. I've dabbled in all these different styles that you see are more common to food blogging, and you read a lot of stuff where, you get the feeling that a lot of brands prefer you to shoot in a pretty straight on kind of style. But no matter what I do, I keep going back to kind of slightly moody stuff. It just seems to be
Yes.
naturally me. And I can't really fight it. And also I'm kind of a restless spirit and I get bored easily. So I really have a hard time having each recipe have the same style, be shot in the same style. That kind of takes some of the fun out of it for me.
Yes.
I don't want things to become automatic. I don't want to be applying the same preset to every shoot. Um, yeah, that's part of the fun for me. I love editing, and part of the fun for me is trying out new things.
Right. When you said moody, I was thinking dark, but you mean
Mhm.
moody as in you change the style based on what that recipe's calling to you,
Yeah,
I guess.
exactly. I really do things based upon the colors, the ingredients, the background I use. I kind of just do things intuitively and just kind of let it flow. And it's usually not what I intended to do in the first place, but I can't fit myself into a box. So I kind of given up and I'm like, I'm just going to let the creative muse take me where it will.
I love that. And I think there's something to be said for that. I think we'd all would enjoy the process a whole lot more if we could tap into that.
hmm
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about your blog because it sounds like you've been on quite the journey, and I think it's a path that will inspire a lot of people. So, the way I describe, what you've gone through is I call it. It sounds to me like you've been bootstrapping your food blog.
hmm
Can you talk about how you started your blog and how what it felt like at the beginning?
Yes. I started it. We were living in a studio apartment with our son and later our second son. Um, Very small quarters, very limited resources. I have my Nikon DSLR that I've had for years and years. It doesn't have video capability. Um, Sometimes we were getting food from the food bank. I made the most of everything that we had to start this all up. I, make my own backdrops. I used free editing software in the beginning. I used the cheapest Weebly plan. I started out on Weebly. I did everything as, budget friendly as I could. And my goal at the time was just to make enough to cover the website fees, just to be able to
Yes.
continue this path. But it was tough. I mean, I even now, my kids are around me nearly 24/7, and a large portion of the posts written there were written while I was breastfeeding. Everything was, yeah, it was just a real uphill battle. A lot of challenging circumstances.
I love that story though, because I think it's easy for us to tell a story about other people. Like we would say, oh, they bought, they had this tool or that tool. And, if you can't afford those tools, then you have to figure a way to get it done. And so it sounds to me like you were able to figure all that out and do it yourself.
Oh, yes, I found all sorts of workarounds for things. And, there are a lot of great free resources. Like I love the Food Blogger Central Facebook group. You can learn so much by just, searching SEO, search engine optimization in those groups. And you can just learn so much from other bloggers. A lot of bloggers are really open to you reaching out to them and asking for advice too. I find it a very friendly community. And it's like where there's a will, there's a way for anything, really. um,
Yes.
and
Yes. Oh, so you're speaking of resources of like people who are offering their guidance and advice. Were there tools that you wish that you had along the way? Like I'm thinking of things like, social media sharing tools or things that would help you blog in a way.
well, what's funny is something like Tailwind. I Pinterest has always been my strong game, and without Tailwind, and I've done well with it, throughout the years. And the first time I tried Tailwind, my traffic on there totally tanked.
Oh my
So then
goodness.
I got rid of it immediately. And it was only recently that I tried it again, and it seems to be going all right now. But in some instances, I was excited to try things once I was able to afford certain things, but they weren't all they were cracked up to be for me. So that's what's kind of
Yeah.
ironic too.
Well, I find it
But
interesting because I think we tell ourselves the story again that we can do so much more if we had such and such tool, and
mhm.
but I wonder if automating things kind of disassociates us from the results, and so I don't know, like I just always think that technology can make us do things faster, but that doesn't always mean it's smarter.
Yes, exactly. It took a long time for me to dive into video because I don't have video capability on my camera. And I eventually just jumped in and said, I need to do this, even if the quality is kind of crappy with my phone. And I did. I jumped into it and I love it. And yeah, the videos aren't perfect, but I think it's helped the blog grow quite a bit too. So
Oh
sometimes you just kind
yeah.
of hold yourself back by thinking you have to have the next great thing in order to get started on something. But instead, I've just kind of forced myself to start things without things being perfect.
Yes, I hope people hear this message. I mean, it's so easy to want to be a perfectionist. Again, I think we compare ourselves to the top 5% of bloggers that are out there that are
hmm
doing just, amazing. Maybe they have a team who's working with them. Well, who
hmm
knows? But, you can get out there and do some amazing things with the tools that you have available.
Yes, exactly.
I love it. Okay, so let's talk about that migration process because you started out on a different platform. It sounds like you went through two different platforms before you got to
hmm
WordPress. Can you talk about that?
Well, when I started out on Weebly, I enjoyed it. I mean, it was easy to use, and but eventually I learned like, okay, wait a minute, what are recipe cards? What's this business about? What's this whole Google friendly stuff? Having them read your recipes, and what's this code? Eventually it took a while, but I learned about that, and I didn't. That's when I decided to move to Squarespace, and because I learned that you could still place the schema, the JSON LD code into the post on Squarespace. You could still make it Google friendly. You didn't
Yes.
have an automated recipe card generator, but I found lots of workarounds with Squarespace for just coding things myself. And it worked, and I grew a lot on that platform, but it was a lot more work than it needed to be because once I moved to WordPress, I realized, oh, it's so great that I just enter this here and it automatically does it for me. It's saving so much time because I was putting hours and hours into one post, on Squarespace, and it's really helped me be more efficient. WordPress is amazing. All the plugins that do things for you instead of going back to every single post and having to enter things individually. It was just amazing to me what you could do with WordPress.
Yes. Was the transition difficult? The migration, I should
Not as
say.
much as I expected. When I moved from Weebly to Squarespace, I did things. I copied and pasted every individual recipe with from Squarespace to WordPress. My host, Big Scoots, who I love, migrated everything for me, all of the content, and so that was great. It was a lot easier than I expected. I wondered why I had held off for so long. And sure, there was a little bit of cleaning up to do here and there, and I obviously I went back and entered all the information to recipe cards, but still, it was yeah, it wasn't bad at all.
Right. And I'm not aware of the difference. I should probably know more about Squarespace. Was there a fee involved, or what was the reason that held you back from moving to WordPress?
I was attracted to Squarespace. I like the look of their websites. I wasn't sure what I would be getting into with WordPress. I was afraid it would be a little overwhelming for me at the time. And I really I do still like Squarespace. It's harder to grow on that platform. And it's a lot, you have to put a lot of work into making things SEO friendly compared to WordPress. But it's still a great platform.
Yes,
I think it's great
exactly.
if you have a store or, more of a static website and you want to display just your photography, a little gallery. But when it comes to coding and, you know, like I love Yoast and I love
Yes.
um, being able to use recipe cards and table of contents and things like that make things your posts more Google friendly. That's all great, and
Yeah.
Squarespace doesn't offer that, and so I felt like I
So
had to leave.
it's the plugins that really make WordPress so good in some
hmm
ways.
hmm
Yeah.
And it makes
Yeah.
you more efficient.
Yes. But don't you think, as a result of having gone through two different platforms before you arrived at WordPress, that it gave you some insight into, I guess, what I would describe it as user experience, maybe a little bit more?
Yes, I got a lot of feedback from. I mean, another reason I moved is getting feedback from readers wanting certain features that I didn't have on my site, and I found workarounds for as much as I could. I even found ways to insert ratings codes into my posts, but it was
Wow.
a lot of work. But
Yes.
yes, I feel like I've learned over the years what my readers are actually wanting and what makes their experience easier. And WordPress definitely helps with that.
Exactly. What is the post structure that you're looking for when you're doing a WordPress post now?
Well, it wasn't that long ago that I learned about headings and subheadings and breaking things up that way, offering as much information to the user as you can so that they can make it perfectly the first time. And so I try to break things up that way. I like, sometimes I explore, let them know why you're using this ingredient, why it's important. I offer substitutions, tip sections, now sometimes how to process shots, and now video as well. And what I learned too is when I first started really optimizing my posts and seeing a lot of growth, I now realize that I kind of over optimize. So now I'm actually going back and kind of modifying some of the headings as I edit posts because, we're always learning something new. There's always something to do. There's always something that needs to be changed, and there's always work to be done. So that's another, task is I'm always going through like every single post and tweaking something, and it takes a long
Yes.
time, but it usually pays off.
It's true. I sometimes feel so discouraged about knowing that what I'm doing today in a year or two, I'm going to go back and go, wow, why did I do that? And I have to change it.
Yeah, exactly. No,
It can make you feel discouraged about the work you're doing, but oh well, you just have to go with it, you know?
yeah.
So how often do you blog in a given week? Did you try to post on a consistent schedule?
I've tried that, but it doesn't really work out well for me. Sometimes usually once, at least once a week, sometimes twice, and rarely 3 times a week. And a lot of that's dictated by my kids and how things are going here, how much I'm able to get, how tired I am, because I try to do a lot of work after they go to bed. But, some nights I'm just too tired. I can't work even if I have to. So I
Right.
just have to accept that. It's just part of the journey. It's part of it all. And I just have to surrender to that too.
Yes, that's so true. I think it's easy to have these goals and try to push ourselves. And in reality, we have to remember we're working for ourselves and we need to be a good boss to ourselves, you know?
And I've also discovered that things really don't fall apart if you take a little bit of break. It's okay to step back when you need to, you know.
Yes, exactly. So the other question I wanted to ask you about this migration from these different blog platforms is,
Mhm.
tell me the dates, and did you notice, like, so when did you start your blog and when did you migrate to WordPress, and did you notice a big jump in traffic as a result?
Yes. So in December 2015 is when I started the blog on Weebly, and I believe it was, let's see, I think it was around October of 2018 that I moved to Squarespace. So I was on Weebly for a long time, but I also wasn't taking it quite seriously yet. I was still learning that this was something that could really turn into something.
Right.
And when I moved to Squarespace, I did see a jump in traffic. And that was partially because I had just then started really putting effort into SEO at the same time as well, optimizing posts, thinking about the user headings, providing more information. My posts used to be quite short. And I think I maybe made it up to 10,000 views monthly when I was in Weebly.
That's
And
pretty
when I
good.
was, yeah, I mean, I put a lot of effort into it. So you can still, I mean, Google will still read things even if you don't have, schema in place. It's still, you're still able to get somewhere even with very little.
Yes.
you know, Not as
Right.
far, but it's not impossible to still, bring a little traffic in. But when I
Right.
moved to Squarespace in 2018, yeah, things really started to take off, but I also was putting more effort into everything. It was like a fresh new start. And I was grateful for that journey. Because of that, I learned a lot about what's actually going on in the back end. I'm more aware of what the plugins are actually doing on WordPress. I'm aware of what kind of code they're writing into your post, what it's telling Google. So I learned a lot about that because I had to learn how to code things on Squarespace myself. And I'm grateful for WordPress.
Yes, that code makes a difference. I mean, I think the code that's used kind of adds to the page speed, doesn't it?
Yes, makes
So knowing
everything
what's
better.
going on there is actually very important.
Yeah, and for Pinterest too.
Yes, exactly. So I
Mm-hmm.
think it's an example of how bootstrapping can be a really great way to go about it. It's almost like learning math by hand versus using a calculator. I think you learn
Mm-hmm.
it better when
Mm-hmm.
you do it by hand.
Mm-hmm. And you're also more grateful once you have these tools at your
Yes.
disposal and you're in a better place. Like I just have a lot of gratitude, and I'm glad that things got easier rather than harder as I go
Yes.
along.
And so now your blog is doing great. I love that you've turned this into a great success story for you. And can you talk a little bit about some of the things that has happened in your life? Like, did you say you moved to a new apartment because of the income you're making from your blog?
Yes. When I was on Squarespace, it was about a year ago that I was able to apply for Mediavine. And that was a big deal because I was like, I wasn't sure I would ever get there. So that was a big milestone for me. I was grateful to be able to apply to Mediavine at around 30,000 page views. I'm now up to nearly 250K page views a month in
Wow.
just the last year. And I attribute some of that to WordPress and also just me having learned more and applied it, you know.
So wow, it took you like 3 years to get to 30,000 page views a month, and then a year to get
Yeah,
from there to
exactly. That's why
250.
I was like, wow, if I started on WordPress, who knows where I'd be.
That's
But yeah,
true.
it's all part of the journey.
Yes, a message of exponential growth, which is awesome. Yes, I love this. And so now you've got a bigger space in which to work, which probably is helpful as well, I would think.
Yes, I was with Mediavine. I just recently moved to AdThrive. Still seeing how I like that. I mean, they both seem great. They both seem, I'm pretty equal ground there from my own experience so
Yes.
far. But I'm so grateful to now be making a full-time income for my blog, to be able to, yeah, we went from, we never went without the most important things, but we certainly didn't have a budget for extras, you know?
Yes.
So now we're able to go out to eat. I'm able to buy, a backdrop. I'm able to, buy paid plugins for my site if I need to. I'm able to invest a little bit in my blog if I need to or I feel the need to. And it's a relief for our family as well to be able to provide more for the family. It's wonderful, and I'm so grateful for it. I could pinch myself, it's like a dream come true, and I'm also feel more inspired. I mean, the more growth and results that you see, the more inspired you feel to keep going, and I'm just grateful to be living a passion.
Yes. Have you read the book Virginia Woolf called A Room of One's Own?
I haven't. No.
It's so good. She's got so many wonderful lines, and there's a section in there where I don't know if I honestly don't know much about the book, whether it's autobiographical or if it's fiction. But this character gets a stipend from her aunt, and as a result, she says she's no longer no longer like having to be nice to people she doesn't want to be nice to, or I'm not saying we shouldn't be
Yeah.
nice to people. However, it's just the freedom, the financial freedom that comes from having money is, I mean,
Hmm.
there's a lot of theories on happiness related to money, and I guess around 75,000 a year, things kind of even off, but leading up to that point, money can be very powerful.
Hmm. Yes,
So,
and I've had periods of time in my life where I've had a lot, and I've had very little, and I
yes.
realized that money isn't everything at all. You know what I mean? It's not the most important stuff. But when you have very little, it becomes more important.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
yeah.
I've been there too. We grew up, I was very, very poor. And so it's like, I mean, as a child, I don't think you even think about it. You're just living your life and running around. But, you do realize the difference between what's happening to you. And I think growing up in that kind of mindset, you have to work your way out of. I think if you've ever been poor, you really have to kind of work to get your mindset, a healthier mindset around money. Let me say it that
Oh,
way.
yes, definitely. It's still hard for me even to purchase things that I'm not used
Yes.
to purchasing. And yeah.
Yeah. To realize you have the freedom to do that is just
hmm
amazing.
hmm
And I imagine it's got to make you feel so proud to realize that this was your hard work that made this happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think I feel that a little bit. I'm trying to get there. I
Yes.
think I still haven't really taken a step back and I think and looked at it fully. But I get a lot of good feedback from friends and family, and it encourages me. But yeah, I've always been a very driven, passionate person, and I'm just grateful that I think with the right attitude, and really it just takes a lot of persistence. You can really get anywhere you want to be with persistence.
Yeah.
You just need to not give up because there are a lot of ups and downs in this blogging game too, and you need to not be discouraged by the downs. You just have to keep at it.
And sometimes you can be discouraged by the downs. Just don't let yourself stay there. Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I have, definitely experienced the ups and downs, and, it's terrible when you're in the downs, but, you either walk away or like you say, you persist and you realize, okay, I'm doing this because I want to do this, not because,
hmm
I have to.
Yeah, sometimes you have to block out all that noise and kind of other influences and get in touch with why you're really doing this and try to enjoy the
Yes.
process. And for me, when things stop being enjoyable, then I step back and take a break.
Oh,
That really
that's so
helps me gain
smart.
perspective again.
Do you have goals for where you're going, or are you just trying to kind of, be flexible and go
I
with it?
don't think about it too much. I would be thrilled just to sustain where I am. There's also kind of
Yes.
also that fear of like everything being taken away from you too, because it's so
Yes.
volatile. You hear a lot, just especially in the last year, you've heard a lot of other bloggers talk about their traffic completely tanking, and I'm like, try
Yeah.
not to think about it. But I try not to think about the goals. I just kind of try to stay present and in the journey and kind of seeing where it leads. And I'm grateful for the opportunities that come up. I'm grateful, like now at the traffic level I'm at, I have a lot more options when it comes to sponsored posts if need be. Like if I'm not happy with my ad income, I can kind of boost that income a bit with sponsored posts and other things,
Yes, exactly. Let's talk about Pinterest for a second. You
Mhm.
mentioned that people come to you for advice about your Pinterest strategy, and I love that. So I'm just curious, what do you think has worked so well for you there?
I've always tried to do kind of a 50-50 of my own pins and other people's pins. I've always optimized my boards. I have a good mix, probably 50-50 of my own boards and group boards that I'm a part of. A few years back, I deleted a bunch of boards that had less followers than my own account has. And really, the whole thing about new pins really makes a big difference. It can be kind of a pain to create new pins all the time, but I really have been seeing a big boost every time I create a new pin for an old post or a new post.
Yes. How often do you think you're doing that?
I try to create a few new pins a day. I don't put
Okay.
pressure on myself to create a ton. I know there are people out there doing 20, 30 new pins a day and they're seeing extraordinary growth, but I don't have a whole lot of time for that. But I try to do it
Yeah.
wherever I can, whenever I think of it, or if a certain post seems to be gaining traction because of the season, then I try to go back and create a pin for that to give it more traction.
So what I'm curious about is with, let's take the example of somebody creating 20 to 30 pins a day. My understanding is Pinterest doesn't want us having so many scheduled, so many posts per day now. So I guess they're not scheduling those out to different boards anymore. Do you know what I'm saying? Like we used to use Tailwind to like schedule to a bunch
Mhm.
of different boards, but do you,
Mhm.
you just post it on Pinterest and put it on the one board?
I do a mix of uploading directly in Pinterest and posting. I usually post there initially, and then I also schedule in Talon using the interval scheduling. So I try to space it out by at least 3 days, my pins, by at least 3 days. And it varies. And it just depends on if I feel like something's really important to get out right now because it's popular right now, then I, do sometimes I go down to 2 days if I
Yes.
really want it to get attention right now. But if it's not so important, I want it to be it's kind of evergreen content, then I space it out longer. And it seems to work out well. I think I go spend about 40 pins a day
Okay.
on average until when right now.
And Tailwind has this new program where they basically kind of give you an alert when you're pushing the boundaries.
Mm-hmm. I find that helpful. Yeah.
Yes.
Speaking of which, the second time around that I joined Tailwind recently, my Pinterest account was immediately suspended.
Oh my
So I've
goodness.
kind of had bad luck with Tailwind, but I'm really trying to stick with it because it got to a point where I realized I really need the help scheduling. I was doing everything, manually, and that got to be time consuming, and I realized my time needed to be spent elsewhere as well.
Yes, you can spend all your time on Pinterest and then you don't have time to, or the
hmm
bandwidth even, just to recipe test and do other things like that.
hmm So I do think it's important. One thing that's helped me is acting as a regular Pinterest user within the app, pinning from the mobile app, just things. I have lots of boards that are personal too, just things that I like, and I pin those. And I think they like seeing that you're an active user as well and not just promoting yourself.
Yes, Nicole Barker, I just had her on the podcast. She is a Pinterest VA, so she actually does like almost 200 bloggers. She is their Pinterest person, and she mentioned that too. That actually getting into Pinterest and using it as a user and sharing pins directly from your feed makes a difference.
hmm Yeah, I'll have to
So
listen to
I'm
that episode too.
yes, I'm glad to hear you say that you agree with that. So that's
hmm
good.
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay. So it sounds like you are creating new pins every day. Are you using any particular software to do that?
I like Canva.
Oh,
I
I
love
love
Canva.
Canva.
It's
Oh,
easy. It's simple. It gets the job done.
yes.
I find it to be more efficient.
I have a few templates that I use. I kind of spent, my husband's a graphic designer, so I had him develop for me a couple of, templates that I really like. And then I just upload photos and plug them in.
Yep, exactly. Yes.
And if it's an old post, I may have to brighten the photo or crop it in a little bit, but
hmm
it still works.
Yes, definitely.
I just had an old post that I did that went slightly viral, and it kind of shocked me that like what happened here, because I just how you just kind of get busy and you're doing things, and then I was on Pinterest and it has like 247,000 engagement or something like that. I'm like,
That's great.
what happened? I had no idea.
That's
Yes.
great.
Yes, I like those kind of little gifts that happen every now and then.
Have you ever noticed sometimes like there'll be a post that you really don't expect to gain any
Yes.
attention, but then it ends up being really popular? That happens to me all the time.
Yes. And then I have these ones where I think, oh, this nailed it. This is going to
Yeah,
be so
exactly.
good.
And then
And
crickets.
crickets.
Yeah, yeah, same. So definitely, I don't have that figured out yet.
Well, that's where it feels to me a little bit like a soccer match. I had, the more times you make an attempt at goal, the better your
hmm
chances are of winning the game. So
Yeah,
just keep
yeah,
just keep kicking the ball.
yeah, exactly.
That's what we're doing by throwing things up on Pinterest. And obviously you're kind of attuned to paying attention to your audience, so
hmm
to get in there and look and see what's working and what's not.
Yes, and I just thought of something to add from earlier is that one thing that I think helped me grow too is it just incorporating roundups, recipe roundups. That's something I put off for a long time, but my audience really likes roundup posts. Whether it's a roundup of my own recipes or others' recipes, they really like that.
Wow. And why do you think you were resistant to that? You didn't like the idea of them?
I think I was trying to keep everything just, I felt funny. I didn't know a whole lot about it at the time. And I thought, well, this is my blog. I'm just going to keep it with my own recipes, But,
Yes.
but then I learned that, okay, this is a great way to network with other bloggers and support other bloggers. And it's actually fun now to go visit other bloggers' sites, see what they're doing, give them some promotion and traction as well. It's kind of, you both benefit from it. So it's a win-win.
Do you discover other bloggers to include in your roundups through, I know there's a lot of Facebook groups where people do those roundups. Is that what you use?
I use those and also just fellow blogging friends, bloggers that I talk to a
Yes.
lot. Yes.
I think at this point, you have an idea of the people that you like to, like maybe the style is similar or has a similar type of recipe that kind of works well for you.
Yes.
Yes. I didn't actually ask you about the niche of your blog. I think your blog is vegetarian. Is that right?
It's gluten-free vegetarian. I also do like a few nature-inspired craft posts. I do some product reviews. I do a few different things on the blog as well, but my primary focus is gluten-free vegetarian food.
Do you do keyword research? And I'm just curious if that's so. Do you struggle with finding topics in that niche?
I don't struggle with finding topics. I have lots of lists. I write things down on paper and lose them all the time. I'm not very organized. I have lots of little pieces of paper of recipe
Yeah.
ideas, whether researched and not researched, that I like to do. And I do keyword research. It took me a while to get there. I started doing that when I was on Squarespace, and I used the free Keywords Everywhere Chrome extension at the time, which I think it's paid now, but it was free at the time. And I was like, wow, this is neat. I had no idea this whole world was out here, getting all this data about what people are searching for in Google. And I think it helped a lot. But I still don't really intentionally create recipes around a keyword. I make what I want, but then I research it to give it the best possible title, basically, if that makes
I
sense.
see. Yeah, that makes absolute
Yeah.
sense. So you kind of follow your gut on what you're going to make. And then
Mm-hmm.
basically, I totally get that actually, because I've done that with some old posts where obviously I was just making something like I made one recipe called Neapolitan brownies and, you know, probably nobody's searching for that, but it's easy to go into the keyword research and try to figure out if there's a way to rename that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Definitely. It's
kind of,
helpful for going back and updating old posts for sure.
yes,
Mhm.
exactly. So let's talk for a second about your approach to Instagram, because I think you have kind of a unique process there as well. I like how you described that you're really, free spirited, I guess I would say about Instagram. Is
Mhm.
that right?
Yes, I feel like it's can be kind of a time and soul sucker, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and it doesn't bring me traffic. So I really try to put a focus on, okay, at any given time, anything I'm doing, I'm like, okay, is this really contributing to the growth of my blog? Is this useful? So I try not to spend too much time on there because it's really hard, as you know, many of us know, to really see any real growth on there these days.
Yeah.
And I kind of just gave up. I was like, it would be nice to get to 10,000 just to have the swipe up feature, but I'm not
Yes.
going to kill myself doing it because I'm doing pretty well on other platforms and I think my focus should be there. So I use it more, it's kind of more personal because I share some things in stories, but also I share my nature photography on there. I was like, why not? I take all these other photos too. So I just kind of alternate with sharing some of my nature photographs. And also whenever I have a new recipe, I share it on there. But I really try not to kill myself over the whole platform and trying to get anywhere on it, you know?
I love that. It can be very freeing, isn't it?
Yes, definitely.
Because if you make yourself feel bad, if a post only gets 30 likes or whatever, it's just wasted energy.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's not a value of your worth. And, there's a lot of
Yes.
other things going on. There's a lot of other stuff to manage with this blogging thing outside of Instagram. But having said that, it's also a great place for community. I've met a lot of other great bloggers, supportive blogging friends through that platform. So it's
Oh,
it's not all bad too.
oh, exactly. Oh, I totally. And it is a great way to stay in touch with, your blogging friends are doing. That's kind of fun, I
hmm
think. I like that.
hmm
So
Definitely.
you have little ones at home. I'm just curious how you prioritize family with work.
That's a tricky one. That's an
Yes.
ongoing process trying to strike that balance because there's always so much to do. And my old self tends to be quite a perfectionist and workaholic. So I've really had to teach myself how to unplug a bit, prioritize my children. Sometimes, some days I fail, some days I do much better. It's all over the
Yes.
place. But I try to do as much as I can at night after they go to sleep. I try to do what I can during the day when they're independently playing and occupied. But I also make it a point to unplug, for large chunks of time throughout the day to just be wholly present with them because, obviously they are the most important thing. They come first.
Yes.
So I do as much as I can when I can, and I just try to let the rest go. And you have to.
I love that. I know there are a lot of people these days that are in your boat now where they are at home and the kids are at home as too. So I'm curious if you have advice for people that are going through that.
Gosh, I don't know if I have advice, but I think it's good to allow yourself to just do what you can do, to give yourself grace and time, to just give yourself credit for what you're getting done and try not to sweat the rest of it because family is important, and when children are at home with you, you really should be enjoying that time with them. That really is most important, and you'll still grow. You can still grow. You may not be
Yes.
growing as quickly as you want to, but you can still get enough done with your children at home to grow.
Yeah.
To do both. You can do both.
It goes by really fast. People would always say that to me and be like, what is, no, no, no. But yeah,
Mhm.
my daughter is out. So, I just can't believe it because it just seems like the time when she was little was there in perpetuity and it's not. They do grow up
Mhm.
and they're thrilled to leave. Let me just say it that
Yes,
way.
exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
I used to love little kids and now I see them and I think you're just a little heartbreaker is what you are. Someday you're going to break your mama's heart and be excited to leave. But I would say, just as a follow-up to that it does get better, and you do just form a new relationship. It's just those years are really hard.
Yes, they are. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
lie. No.
Yes. So I love the concept of organization and workflow, and I feel like you probably have a process that you use. Can you describe your process for organizing your work?
Well, I feel like I'm not nearly as organized as many bloggers. I'm a pen and paper person. I like writing things down on pen and paper. I tend to write to-do lists nearly every day and try to work through those. And if I don't get to it all, I get to it the next day. I keep a lot of things organized in my head. I'm kind of aware at any given time what my next focus should be when I have the time. So I'm not one for giving great advice on organizing things, because I don't use a lot of those computer programs and such for writing it all out. I don't have a content calendar for myself. I work a lot through just intuition, like gut feelings and what I'm most interested in at the moment and what I think will bring the most growth. I just kind of bring myself back to, okay, what should be a priority right now? And then do that. What should be a priority? Then do that, if that makes sense.
Yes, it totally does. And I'm really jealous. I wish I could be that way. But if I don't have things written down, I feel like I'll just get into this la la land where it's like I'm all caught up.
Right.
And that's
Yeah.
not true at all. You're
It's a little
lucky.
different with sponsored posts though, because you usually have a deadline. So those tend to throw me for a loop sometimes,
Yes.
especially with kids. Like, okay, oh, I have to get this done. Oh my gosh, it's almost due, So
Yes.
that becomes a
There's a lot
priority
of
really
pressure to
quickly.
that.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
exactly. It's different than just doing your own thing.
Yes. And do you find you like one better than the other? I mean, some people like having that arbitrary deadline. Do you like that better or not?
I don't like that.
Okay.
But I do enjoy sponsored posts now. At first I didn't. I was like, okay, this is odd. Am I, I don't know. I was always worried about producing content that they would actually like, because I know that my style is all over the place. I don't feel very
Yes.
consistent in that way. But it's done well for me, and it's been kind of fun. It's kind of a fun creative exercise when someone's presenting you with the ingredients and saying, okay, make something, do this. And it's kind of just, I view it as that, a creative exercise. And so
Yeah.
now I enjoy it. I'm like, okay, it's fun seeing what I can come up with for sponsored posts.
How would you describe your monetization buckets without going into numbers or anything, but maybe percentages of, like, is ads 50%, or how would you describe your?
Oh, ads are probably like 90 or 95% of
I see.
everything right now.
Yes.
I earn some affiliate income with that. And then sponsored, posts. I mean, that sponsored posts are picking up right now. So I'm not sure what that'll be like here shortly.
Yes.
But yeah, I once sold, on Squarespace, I can be all over the place with things. I get really inspired, and I'll have an idea and I'll implement it immediately. So I was selling some Lightroom presets on there and branching out into other things. But when I moved to WordPress, I really tried to niche down and kind of, clear out all that clutter and put more of a focus on the food.
Yes. Well, clearly that's paid off for you, right?
Yes, I think it's important too. So I
Yes.
just have to kind of hold myself back a bit, because I have so many interests and stuff. It's like easy for me. Like, I want to do this, start this. I sometimes have other ideas for blogs, but I'm like, just, it's good. You're doing well right now. Just stick with this. Don't get too
Yes.
scattered.
I feel the same way. I always have 1,000 projects that I want to, but at some point you really do have to kind of hone down on the one that you're working on.
And it does help. It does help with growth, I find.
Yes. When you stay focused.
Yeah, and you just kind of put a main focus for your blog and produce that content. It's good. I feel like Google likes that too.
Yes. And then your audience knows what, they're coming to your
Yeah.
site for that reason. Yes.
Mhm.
So if you were talking to somebody today who said they were thinking about starting a food blog, what advice would you give them?
I would say I would tell them to enjoy the process as much as possible, because it can be a fun learning journey. And I think you don't want to get too caught up into, wanting to be the next greatest influencer and make a ton of money. I think you really have to have a passion in this business in order to succeed. And yeah, I think you have to enjoy it to really get anywhere, I feel like, because you have to wear many hats and you're scattered many different directions, and I think also you have to be good at multitasking. But yeah, I think that's all I have to say. You just really try to enjoy it as much as possible. And if you just keep working at it, you'll get somewhere.
I love that. And, I think I'm from Missouri, and it was Mark Twain that said, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life.
Yes, exactly. And you don't want to lose sight of your reasons for beginning something, I think. You want to stay close to those roots. It'll help you along the way.
Oh, that's such great advice. Okay, so I love to ask these fun questions at the end of the interview.
Mhm.
Are you game?
Sure. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so tell me about your favorite food.
I love Indian food takeout. I love vegetable korma. That's like my favorite. I love Indian food. And even at home, I'm always making curry.
Yes.
Yes.
You know, Indian food cracks me up because the first time I was exposed to it, grew up in a small town in Missouri and lived in Missouri my whole life. So just imagine kind of a sheltered eater, like just not
Mhm.
experimenting a lot.
Yeah.
And I met this couple, they lived next to me and they were Sikhs. And so they were from India and they took me to visit their temple once. It was just a fun thing to do with them. I've really enjoyed it. And
Oh, great.
afterwards, they served Indian food. And I had never tried it before. And I thought it looked disgusting and gross, but I didn't want to be rude. And I ate it and it was delicious.
Yeah. Yeah. It is.
It's so good, so
Yeah.
flavorful.
Yes. And I love flavor. I love using way too many spices and things.
Yes. And then, getting that naan bread and scooping up all
Mhm.
the good stuff at the bottom of the
Mhm.
plate. That's good.
Mhm.
So, tell me again, what was your favorite Indian dish?
I love vegetable korma, veggie korma.
Ah, yes. And do you make that at home?
I do. Yes.
Yes.
It's not nearly as good as takeout. I haven't achieved that yet. You know,
Yes,
they do something
exactly.
at our local restaurant that I can't replicate. But
Exactly. I love that. Okay, so what's the favorite app on your phone?
I would have to say Spotify. I love music. It's a music app, and
Yeah.
music is something I enjoy listening to while editing photos. Provides some inspiration as well, and I like how easy that app is to use and to discover new artists and create playlists. And yeah,
Do you find that music kind of helps your mindset as you're working?
yes, I find it can be a bit of a motivator.
Yes.
Yeah, just as podcasts can. Like your podcast is a motivator for me. I should add that if I'm having a hard time with the blog and I'm not feeling very motivated, I often listen to a podcast to try and
Nice.
find some inspiration again, gain my footing.
Yes. I do the same thing. I love listening to podcasts and sometimes in the middle of my day I need to go have get a walk because I do think, you talk about creativity a lot. I think physical movement is a very important part of creativity.
Hmm.
And so going
Definitely.
for a walk really helps me. And if I listen to a podcast that inspires me, that makes me feel even better. But music, oh my God, I forget about music sometimes. And if I put on, I've got some great playlists I can't listen to just anything and work. But if I can get the right playlist going, oh, it just
Hmm.
really it gets me going.
Hmm. Definitely.
Yeah, I love it. I think Spotify is a great app. I also, since my daughter is a musician now too, I kind of understand the business side of music now. And I've
Hmm.
made a point to make sure to buy music from the artists that I like because I think, that helps them too. I used to
Yeah.
always buy music, but now I hardly ever. So
No, that's
trying to
great.
get back into that.
That's a great point.
Yes, it really helps them a lot. Otherwise,
Hmm.
they're basically spending thousands of dollars to create these songs that they have to put out there for free. It's very hard
Well,
on
and you can
them.
apply that to blogging too, and people reach out to you wanting you to produce work for free or in exchange for,
Yes,
products,
Ex-
you know.
with the hope that this is going to be exposure, so this is going to help me in the end. But
Hmm.
yeah, it's the music industry is definitely it has some dark sides.
Hmm.
Yeah, but I love what I use Spotify for then, or actually I have the Amazon Prime Music. That's what I use, but
Hmm.
I just use it to test the waters to see if I really like that artist. And like you might like one song, and I would be happy just to buy the one song from them. Or if I want to continue with the whole album, then I kind of test it out and see if I like
Hmm.
it, and then
Yeah.
so.
Yeah,
And I
exactly.
would say maybe for the bigger artists, like, if it's an Eagles song or whatever, I think they're probably doing fine. So I don't worry
Yeah.
about them. It's those smaller artists that I like to support.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you have any time for TV or reading at all? And if you do, what's your favorite?
As far as reading, I wish I had time. I used to love to read, but since blogging and motherhood, I haven't. I've probably read a handful of books to completion. But I
Yes.
used to enjoy reading a lot of reference books like How to Identify Local Plants, Animal Tracks, a lot of nature books. I've also
Yeah.
been a lot into metaphysical books, New Age genre. One of my favorite books is Illusions by Richard Bach. I love anything that kind of questions reality and helps you contemplate things.
Nice.
And as far as TV, yes, that's like pretty much the only recreation I have in my life with my significant other is we enjoy watching TV at night after the kids go to bed, watching an episode here and there. And my recent favorite show is called Dark. It's a German science fiction show on Netflix, and it is really great. It's just
Ooh, I
really
don't
well
know
made.
about that one. I'm going to check it out.
It's great, yeah.
My husband loves science fiction, so I imagine he's probably already watching it.
Yeah. Oh, I also love the Great British Baking Show.
And
Yeah, I find that just to be comforting, like comfort food kind of in the form of TV,
yes, and those people are just so endearing. I love that show.
Mhm.
I have a friend doing her own Facebook quarantine baking show right now.
Oh, that's great.
It's really cute. Yeah, she just shares recipes, and she is not a baker at all, so it's been fun watching her do that.
Oh, neat.
Yeah. So how can people find you online?
At moonandspoonandyum.com, on Pinterest, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, all at Moon and Spoon and Yum.
And just to clarify, that "and" is spelled out, right?
Yes, and spelled out.
Yes. Well, Kristen, thanks so much for taking the time to talk with me today. I had a wonderful time.
Thank you so much, Marley. The pleasure's all mine.
Thanks to Kristen Wood for being my guest on today's episode of the Chopped Podcast. If you want to hear more about the latest in food blogging, including keeping up on every episode of the show, head to chopped.academy and scroll to the bottom and hit subscribe today. I hope you loved today's episode. If you'd like to help support the Chopped Podcast, the best thing you can do is subscribe. While you're there, you can leave a review on iTunes. All you have to do is scroll to the bottom of the feed and leave that review. These 2 steps really make a huge difference, helping this podcast get seen by more people. You inspire me, and I hope today's show was helpful and inspirational to you as well. Thanks for listening, and have a great week.